You are listening to Faithless Brewing, a Magic the Gathering podcast for the Spike Robe. Each week we design new decks for tournament play. We put our creations to the test and share our findings on the air. Coming up on the Brew session, Meria, Scholar of Antiquity, combines big mana and big card draw in a sleek Gruul package. Is this a one-stop shop for artifact combo, or is Meria just Urza at home? We're going to find out on Faithless Brewing. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to the Faithless Brewing podcast. I am your host, Dan Schriever, also known as Cave Dan online, coming to you live from the holy city of Jerusalem. Joining me today all the way from Argentina, you know him as Moored to Light. It's Emi Sagasti. Emi, welcome.
Heyo, how's it going, Dan? How is it going all the way from the holy city?
Yeah, not bad. The weather's getting cooler finally. It's kind of a long summer, but finally starting to get a little more comfortable. You know, Jerusalem is very walkable, but you get tricked into thinking that something's only like a kilometer or two away, and then you find out that it's in the scorching hot sun, and there's all these hills. Sometimes there's a protest happening.
That's more like Argentina than Jerusalem.
Yeah, you feel right at home here.
I would feel right at home. But glad to hear. At least for the nice hills part. So, what do we have in store for us today, my beautiful Dan? My beautiful monk.
So it's a classic episode today. We picked a new card. It's Meria, Scholar of Antiquity. Card that's seen a little bit of success yet, and it's got a lot of potential. So I wanted to make sure that we gave Meria her due, just sort of thought through the process of what makes Meria tick. So we're going to do that in both Modern and Pioneer. And then we're going to check in on some of the latest news from around the multiverse. Should be a quiet show, simple, nothing too fancy.
Alright, seems like a pretty efficient plan. Nothing fancy, just a tiny bit of a roundup, some bit of housekeeping, and a little bit of media. What can go wrong? And for some reason, that in my head had the rhythm of Mambo number 5. Excuse me, everybody.
Did not see that coming.
I know, thanks.
That doesn't make any sense. But okay. So before we dive into the program for today, let's just get our housekeeping out of the way at the top. Just a quick reminder that if you're enjoying the show, the best way to support what we do is by joining our Patreon, which you can find at patreon.com/faithlessbrewing. We do have 2 new patrons that I meant to welcome last time, and I just completely forgot. They are Ara M and Steve B. Thank you very much to both those individuals. Apologize for the belated welcome. Yeah, we really appreciate it. Joining the Patreon gets you a number of benefits. You can get access to our wonderful Discord community. Also get other benefits, like you can vote for our monthly projects. This is our Friday episode today, which means that voting is still live for a few more hours. I believe it will close at midnight tonight, and it's a dead heat right now.
Is it? Can you give us a teeny bit of spoilers? Come on, Dan. Indulge us. Give us the drama.
All right, so last week we talked about 14 cards. I call this 14 terrible cards that might actually be sweet. And there are 2 of them that apparently struck a chord with people because, like, I've never seen 2 cards get such a huge, overwhelming percentage of the vote.
Oh, damn. So we have 2 cards head-to-head, crushing the rest?
They each have, like, almost 50% of the vote.
That's insane.
And if you're listening and thinking, like, the math doesn't check out, how can this work? Well, you get to vote for 3, so
yeah, of course.
There's more than 100% available.
There's like a 300% available.
Yeah, we're not just terrible at math. Well, I am, but like apart from that, the voting kind of makes sense.
We are a scholar and a college dropout, everybody. We do what we can regarding math.
Hey, you got to watch out for the college dropouts. They're the ones that are going to change the world, so.
But we're just chaotic individuals, so we do what we can.
Exactly. So if you want to come cast the tie-breaking vote, get into the Patreon. We'd love to have you there. Of course, whatever card wins, we'll be brewing with it all month. alongside the guys from Serum Visions. And then, of course, next month we'll do it all again.
Exactly. So hope you find a card you love. Please make your final votings before tonight, and let's hope we. Which was my hater for this week?
You picked two. You picked the Green March.
Oh yeah, that's the one that can't win, but I'm sure people are smart enough to make sure it doesn't. Like, I'm not suffering that one.
Mm-hmm. And Arayo Sorotami Ascendant, just to spite Jiggy, you put that on
Oh,
yours.
that one might win actually, because people love Shigi's ideas. That actually might threaten my position. Everybody, if you haven't voted, go vote for aggressive mining.
Well, I don't want to influence the vote too much, so I'm not going to reveal which two cards are the front runners.
That seems perfect.
We'll announce that on Monday, and we'll take our first crack at brewing with the card.
Seems like a great plan.
All right, Moore, what's going on in the wider world of Magic?
Oh, we have some beautiful, beautiful stuff that people love to complain about. Some of them coherent, some of them not. So first of all, we have what has swept the Magic world because people actually struggle to understand simple things sometimes. Thank you, I became a bit of a David overnight. Unfinity expansion. And with that release, a lot of people either not understanding which cards are legal and which not in eternal formats, alongside people complaining about the few that are legal. We have two new mechanics entering Legacy, most importantly, and Commander, which are stickers and attractions. Attractions are the equivalent of the cranks from last an expansion. The ones you keep turning every single turn.
Oh, the contraptions,
exactly.
Assembling contraptions?
Exactly. Attractions are the contraptions, a separate deck.
A side deck of attractions.
Exactly. Which requires at least 10 minimum different attractions, at least 10 minimum different ones.
So is this meant to be like space, but also amusement parks?
This is a space circus.
A space circus.
Exactly. So you have beautiful creature types as Vampire Employee, Elephant Mouse Performer, Alien Advisor Guest, Clown Robot Mime, Grey Merchant of Alphabet, Zombie Performer, and a lot of beautiful stuff as such. Most importantly in this set, there's something to take into serious consideration, which is the holographic tag at the bottom of the card. If that's an acorn, it means the card is not eternal legal.
I mean... Sorry, I'm just shaking my head here. I know that we're a very specialized podcast, even within the wide world of Magic podcasts. We're like a niche podcast. But most of what you just said, like, I can't process what you're saying. Like, what are all these words? What is Unfinity, first of all?
So Unfinity is the new unset. So these are parody sets that are made every a lot of years in Magic's history. Like, I think this is the third one, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it's the fourth or the fifth, actually.
No, this is the fourth. No, this is the fourth because Shamstar doesn't count. It's not an unset.
Unglued, unhinged, something.
Unstable, and Unfinity.
Unstable. Okay.
So Unfinity, as per usual, comes with a lot of weird mechanics, and it's the first time these cards are in black border. Previously, all previous three sets are on gray border, and this one decided to go on black. Because according to Rose, to Mark Water, they wanted to make people know these are real Magic cards. Like, these are not fake cards, these are real cards. However, if you make them look like real cards, people are going to assume they are playable cards, so they had to distinguish them in legality. Because a lot of these cards interact with stuff that are not legal in a Magic game. For example, cards that say you may cast common spells from the top of your library, or choose a letter whenever you cast a spell whose name begins with a chosen letter, create a 2/2 creature with flying. This stuff, as normal as it might seem, you cannot add into the game due to language barrier and a lot of other restrictions that have to take into consideration.
I think part of it is that, like, a lot of these cards don't actually work within the rules of the game.
Exactly.
You can't program this to work on Magic Online.
Or anywhere.
Example, because it doesn't actually, it's too much interpretation. Like, it kind of fudge things. But some of them, you can actually make them into real cards, and apparently they were doing that now. So stickers are coming to Legacy.
Attractions are coming to Legacy.
Okay.
And a bunch of weird cards. And not only adding that, one of the first spoil cards for Legacy was Space Beleren, which divides the battlefield into 3 parts and then makes it so only one can block or only one gets counters, so it works exactly as really old card, the River. There's a Raging River or something like that from long before I was born, and this acts exactly like that, and people are going over heels saying that this is insane, this is legal.
I mean, my first thought was that they were trying to take that other Richard Garfield game, Artifact, the one that was going to kill Magic and then didn't, and then disappeared, where you divide up 3 lanes.
People think everything is going to kill Magic and nothing ever will, so it's just a loop.
I mean, I think Unfinity is going to kill Magic.
No, Dan, nothing is going to kill Magic.
Magic is going to survive.
Magic is going to survive, Magic is going to thrive, and in a year they're going to release Lord of the Rings, and when you go turn 1 Gollum, turn 2 Lord Boromir, that's going to be the peak of Magic.
I mean, I hope you're right. I just, like, I don't know what it is. Like, I've been trying to avoid Unfinity spoilers, but when I see them, when they make their way across my feed, like, I don't get a good feeling about it. I get confused, I feel disoriented. I know that means that this product is not for me, so I should just try to avoid them.
It's so easy to avoid.
Yeah, it is.
Avoid it most of the time. The thing with them releasing so much stuff is that 80% of them is irrelevant for most people. I get interested in none of it because I'm an ADHD idiot that loves to read weird stuff. So I'm bored and I enter Mythic Spoiler and I take a laugh at how the cards are designed, either for the good laugh or the bad laugh.
It's just like I was watching one of those Marvel movies the other day, Thor, Love and Thunder. It was just like a completely joyless corporate exercise. I don't know if you've seen this one, but you know, Thor is supposed to be one of the more jokey, irreverent ones, like within the Marvel franchises, poking fun at the genre of not even superhero movies, but just like poking fun at the Marvel universe. And you reach this point where it's like the line between satire and the real thing is indistinguishable. Like there's a popular show on Amazon called The Boys, which is supposed to be like a gritty send-up of the whole Marvel genre. And like scene for scene, things that happen in The Boys happen in Thor, Love and Thunder. It's like it's been absorbed by the institution. Like there's an amusement park and there's endorsements and product deals and stuff. And it's like, oh, haha, look at us. And you just like, it's just too confusing. It's too much. It's too much. And Unfinity gives me like a little bit of those vibes. So like, I have to like just back away slowly and just try to avoid these spoilers because this is not for me. As cool as the space basic lands are, this is not for me.
Yeah, that's the most important part about it. You have 2 sets of lands that are amazingly beautiful, the shock lands and the basic lands. The basic lands just are gorgeous, and there's like 2 sets of them. There's the in-planet ones and the outside-planet ones.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you have like the in-planet, like showing an ecosystem inside each planet, and then you have like the outer perspective, like showing it in outer space.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I mean, always down for more beautiful basic lands. I mean, we just had the stained glass ones. We just had the Kamigawa ones. I mean, there's so many beautiful ones now.
Look, an escapee.
Oh, got a kitten cam updates. My God.
We have an escapee. Ah.
How old are the kittens now, Mord?
25 days?
25 days, and they're crawling now. They're just... Mord's usual mattress that he uses to block the sound of the buses has been reappropriated as a kitten den, so apologies for any weird sounds you hear.
Yeah, we have lost control of the house. Like, each day they take more state.
The cats have taken over the recording studio, but that's okay. It's worth it.
Oh, Pippin is the smart one?
Pippin is the father cat, by the way.
So we have realized none of the father cats ever learned how to grab them by the neck, so they're unable to transport them yet.
Wow.
So that means, give me a second, I have to do all the baby kitten transport.
While Mord is retrieving the kittens, this is your reminder to go check out his stream at twitch.tv/MordToLight. He does stream semi-regularly. He doesn't remember to talk about it, but there's a kitten cam set up. There's no time to waste. They're so cute right now. Don't think I'll do it later this week. I'll do it tomorrow. Do it now. Check it out now. They're so cute.
Kitty!
Hi. Hi.
Go join the common pile.
Exactly. So apart from Unfinity, what else is happening?
So besides Unfinity, which is like the peak of drama as people love to complain, we have an actually good reason to complain. which is the Magic 30 cosplay contest. And that's not the contest itself. The contest was a great idea, as per usual. People love to show their actual amazing skills in it. We have a lot of amazing cosplayers in Magic. It was rather the prizes for the contest itself. So let's say you spend a few months, got yourself an amazing cosplay that rules the man. It's 80% made on your own. So that means that's actually a lot of hours that you have to involve and a lot of money. Like most estimates are around $800, $900 to say the least. And your prize is a hotel room for the upcoming event, a 3-day badge for an upcoming event, and a $200 Sean Fabric gift card. Even if you go first, you go at a loss.
A badge for an upcoming event, not Magic 30, not the one that you flew to attend. It's just some future event, of which none have been announced right now. One hotel room at said event. Okay. And then, of course, a cash prize. In this case, as good as cash, $200 gift card to Joanne Fabrics. Oh my god. First prize, that's the grand prize at the Magic 30 cosplay contest. A $200 Joanne Fabrics gift card.
Yeah, so I think they're gonna hide, because Wizards are not stupid. Like, they are not stupid, so they have the ace in the hole, which is additional pricing and categories to be determined at a later day by sponsor. I think that small key is what they're gonna use to protect themselves or add something closer to the date, because it's sort of an embarrassment right now.
It's humiliating. It's super embarrassing. I think people, whoever wrote this should be embarrassed. Whoever signed off on this should be embarrassed. They should be ashamed of themselves.
Yeah, the idea, like, everybody can realize that $200 is not relevant.
I mean, it's not even $200. It's a gift card to Joanne Fabrics. And don't get me wrong, I like Joanne Fabrics. They're quite helpful. They're a little bit overpriced. Like, you can get a better price thrifting. But, you know, Joanne Fabrics serves a useful purpose. So I don't agree with the people who are like, what the hell is a Joanne Fabrics? Todd Anderson, I'm talking about you. You should know by now what a Joanne Fabrics is.
I don't know, but I was guessing it was like
it's a US thing.
Yeah, I guess like it was a US thing. And like, the problem is not the gift card itself, is what that leads to. Like, it's $200.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's a gift card, I find a little bit insulting. It's like, what if it was a $200 gift card to Applebee's? It's like, yeah, everyone's got to eat. You can use it. You know, you'll get $200 worth of value when you go to Applebee's and get your barbecue rib tips or whatever. But, you know, it just feels so stingy, and it feels like part of that genre of like, okay, we announce some change. We give the bare minimum. We wait for the backlash to see how big the backlash is, and then we, you know, capitulate and do something to show that we're responsive to fans' concerns. It's like, why do that? Why not just make it good the first time so we don't have to have this?
Yeah, it was dumb, and I tend to say people in Magic like to complain about everything.
Well, yeah, I mean,
but this is one of the first times.
No,
but this is one of the first times I have to agree with the outlash.
Yeah, exactly. I hope the winner like cosplays as Post Malone. That's what I want to see. So, last bit of news is we have an official date now for the Brothers War releasing on Magic Online and Magic Arena. It's going to be November 15th.
Wait, did we go back to paper release before Magic release? Like, for the third time in the cycle?
I believe so, yeah. I believe they're doing that for Brothers War, and I think also the next set too, if I'm reading this correctly. So I think that's good. I mean, we need like a little bit of a breather. The announced release cycle had Brothers War coming up really close on the heels of Dominaria United, but I think that with this extra buffer, having digital come after the paper release, that will give us enough time to like explore and see what's what with Dominaria before we have to start looking at the next set.
What I'm picturing is, I think that even if it's releasing in a month, they might have the spoiler release like in a few weeks, so we might have like a big time between spoilers and like actual release. That would be really fun. Like spoilers starting in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think that's okay. I mean, I think we'll have unfinished business with Dominaria. We'll see.
We'll see. So, down to the card of the day. Meria,
yes.
Scholar of Antiquity, the real name, or as we call it here, Urza at home.
I mean, this is an archaeologist. I love this because, as I mentioned last week, I'm at an archaeological institute right now, and part of our program is We have little lectures from visiting archaeologists. We take field trips to go check out like current excavations happening in the land of Israel, Palestine, and to go from that to like reading the story. I think this was like episode 2 or 3, episode 2 probably of the Dominaria United story, where Meria is an archaeologist in her own way. It's just not quite the same. It hits a little bit different the way that they imagine these like archaeologists functioning. But yeah, I mean, at least her card is powerful. I'll say that.
Yeah, also I love that they went into finding a way to integrate Gruul into artifacts. Because them being so, like, not only nature-based but aggressive, it's really hard to make an Artificer in Gruul, right?
It's unexpected, right? These are not the colors we would expect. Let's keep that in mind and let's read the card and make sure we understand what it does.
Yeah, so 1, a red and a green, so 3 mana for a 3/3 legendary creature, Elf Artificer. You may tap and untap non-token artifact you control. The key there is untap, and to add a green. Sorry, the key there is non-token, of course, not the untap. Excusez-moi. And secondly, you may tap 2 untap non-token artifacts you control, exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn. So you will see 2 extreme similarities to Urza, the same ability, almost the same 2 abilities, but instead of tapping any artifact to make a blue, you tap a non-token to make a green, and instead of paying 5 mana to shuffle your deck, see the top card of your deck, and play it for free, you tap 2 non-token artifacts, exile the top card, and you may play it this turn. The fact you don't play it for free means you don't have to shuffle your deck every single time, because it's not as easy to cheat stuff.
Yeah, so the comparison with Urza jumps out right away, tapping artifacts for mana and having some kind of ability to play cards off the top of your deck. Obviously, Meria does not bring a Karnstruct with it, so not quite as powerful on that axis, or maybe like a lower floor, we might say. Obviously, if Meria just dies, you'll be disappointed. The good news is that both of her abilities are activated abilities that you can use right away, right? They are not affected by Summoning Sickness because they don't have the tap symbol. So you could, if it's turn 3, you play Meria, and if you already have a couple of pieces sitting around, whether that's, I don't know, a Springleaf Drum, a Mishra's Bauble, an Experimental Synthesizer, whatever you want, you can immediately tap those for either of the 2 abilities, either adding green or exiling the top cards to get some card advantage back. So I think the play patterns will be quite different, meaningfully different from Urza, and of course the colors are quite different. There's similarities, but important differences that I think could open up some interesting brewing space.
Yeah, also it's a 3/3 instead of a 1/4, which is a much more aggressive stat line, which doesn't make a lot of sense because it's really weird you want to play this in an aggressive deck. But at least if you don't have the construct, at least you're hitting for 3.
Yeah, I mean, she blocks. She doesn't die to stomp. I mean, that's important. So things to keep in mind. Legendary, that's fine. Elf Artificer, I think in this case, neither of those tribes make a difference because Meria is kind of asking for something very specific, right? A deck full of lots of non-token artifacts.
Artificer tag is not irrelevant with something like Cavern of Souls, as you have the 2 mana. The Goblin Engineer, Urza, and Meria are all Artificers.
Okay.
So it's sort of an almost...
Oh yeah, I can see that.
It's an almost big amount that you can actually play Cavern of Souls in that sort of deck and feel like you're actually getting some value out of it.
Yeah, that's a thought. I just assumed that a deck like that wouldn't be playing Cavern, but maybe it will. The biggest difference is going to be the non-token clause, as Emmy said, and that already just like totally changes our heuristics. Because whatever we were thinking, whatever our little shortcuts were, like, oh, I'm going to play Underworld Cookbook and make a bunch of food tokens. I'm going to play Gilded Goose. I'm going to make Urza Saga constructs. Like, you can do all that, but you can't use those for Meria, right? Meria can only use actual real artifacts, made out of cardboard, the real stuff.
So the best way to found with Meria, for example, I have seen is something like the artifact lands or such. Because that way they're just laying there and you get the ability of actually drawing a card by tapping 2 lands.
I don't think you want artifact lands, right? I mean, that if a land already taps for mana, I think this is true of a lot of artifacts. If the purpose of the artifact was already to tap for mana, you're not getting that much benefit out of Meria. So I think for a similar reason, Springleaf Drum, Moonstare Prototype, these cards are like okay with Meria, but they're not great.
So you're giving the upside of being super... Unlike Urza, where you need 5 mana to draw a card, with Meria is only tapping 2. So as long as your deck is super lower curve, it makes it a lot easier to start going through your deck.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you have to find like a Calice, or you're looking for like sort of specific hate cards. Meria is actually drawing you a lot deeper in general.
Oh, she is. Yeah, no, I think that she's better than Urza in that respect. I was just talking about specifically like what kind of artifacts we're looking for to power her up. One of my hypotheses is that, yes, we do want mana-producing artifacts, but they don't work that great with Meria because, Meria letting you tap a Darksteel Citadel for a green does not do anything, right? Now, Meria letting you tap a Darksteel Citadel for a half of a card does do something very interesting.
That's super interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Two other notes that I think are relevant. The first is the interaction between Meria and Kinnan Bonder Prodigy. And this will come up because one of the shells that has been successful does combine both of these two legends. Kinnan, Meria, in like a Paradox Engine shell, for example.
Yeah, but it combines them in a Rule of Fate sort of way rather than a synergistic among themselves way.
Exactly. So it may seem like Meria works with Kinnan, but in fact she does not, right? Kinnan only adds extra mana if the thing you are tapping actually had the tap symbol in it. That is what the game defines as tapping an artifact for mana.
That's super weird.
It is weird, right? I feel like they should fix that. They should somehow clarify. But it's the same reason that Kinnan does not work with Urza, right? Because even though Urza has the word tap written out and you end up tapping an artifact to make mana,
you don't have the tap symbol.
Yeah, you don't have the tap symbol, so you didn't do the game action of tapping for mana. Second note is that, yeah, you have one turn to play whatever card you find off Meria's second ability. So it says you can play the card this turn. So that means playing lands is okay. You don't have to like prepare your mana ahead of time, like a Chandra that forces you to play the card immediately, or like Urza. Yeah. Well, actually, Urza's not like that.
No, Urza's free.
Urza's free.
Urza's so easy.
Meria, you will have to find the mana, but you have the rest of the turn to make use of the card.
But yeah, until any point has been relevant, like, because a lot of the time, like in combat or something, Meria might die and you can just get the card ready for the second main. Like, I have seen stuff like that. I have had opponent find Chalice off the top, like digging 3 cards with Meria when they are looking for a free spell.
Yeah, so I guess we could think of that as Meria's ETB if we want to, right? If you're expecting her to immediately die to Unholy Heat or Leyline Binding or something, you can still potentially get a card out of Meria just by using the second ability in response. You have the rest of the turn to make good on that.
Yeah. It's not as great as an Urza, but it's 3 mana, and it finally gives us something close to a Rule of Fate regarding Urza.
That's true. That's true.
It doesn't go infinite with Thopter Foundry, sadly. It goes only semi-infinite.
It does go infinite. What do you mean?
Yeah, but it doesn't go doubly infinite. Urza goes super infinite. Urza wins you the game because you draw your whole deck as well.
I see.
This goes tiny infinite.
So that's one of the combos that Meria has been doing some good work in. Just jamming her into the Thopter Sword combo. And the reason that there's a difference here is that non-token clause. So if you're familiar with Thopter Foundry and Sword of the Meek, the way that works is for every mana you spend, you get to sacrifice your Sword of the Meek to make a Thopter and gain a life. The 1/1 comes in, the sword comes back, untapped, right? So if you just have those two, for as much mana as you have, you get that many Thopters and that much life. If you add in something like Urza to the mix, now you can tap the sword every time it's going through the loop, and you can tap the new Thopter. So you actually are putting 1 mana in, getting 2 mana back, in addition to your life and your Thopters, which lets you get not just infinite life and infinite Thopters, but also infinite mana, which is enough to then activate Urza a million times, and hopefully the opponent has just conceded, but if they make you play it out, you will eventually play your whole deck. Now, Meria can do most of that. What Meria can't do is she cannot tap the new Thopter. She can tap the sword, so that allows you to keep making infinite Thopters and gaining infinite life, but that's it.
Okay. Yeah, likely enough, but it's worth making sure that you are not gonna win on the spot as Urza would.
Right, you have to pass the turn with infinite life and infinite Thopters. Well, hopefully that wins.
That's likely gonna win, especially because you can remake infinite tokens on the end step. But a Supreme Verdict is a Supreme Verdict.
It's true. All right, so we more or less understand how the card works. I guess the next question is, is this card any good? What do we like about it? And what are some of the big considerations we should be thinking about? So the first question, what about the colors? I mean, are we concerned about being in Gruul colors? These are not the traditional artifact colors.
So I think that's format dependent. In Modern, we don't care. We have extremely powerful mana bases that can afford to just splash Meria in any colors we desire, especially when we also have mana fixing provided by artifacts. The combination of drums plus the lands makes it super easy to actually play this in a Temur shell if that's what we desire. However, in Pioneer, it's a bit annoying because the first thing you think in Pioneer with Meria is something like Emry or Keenan. And playing a 3-4 color mana base in Pioneer becomes a lot tougher, which would have made Meria, if Meria was like Simic or Mono Blue, a lot better.
Yeah, I think this is one of the cards that they deliberately put it in weird colors in order to be like interesting for Commander, so that it's like a forward compatible. You know, there's maybe not enough stuff in Gruul right now, but
They will.
In time, you can build a cool Gruul artifact deck. We don't have that kind of patience here, right?
No, we need results now.
Exactly. We're just going to splash for it. Get the Spire of Industries. Get the Springleaf Drums. Throw a Gilded Goose in if you have to. I think Courier's Briefcase is going to be a common card. We'll see. That is essentially a treasure. But importantly, it's a real card. It's not just a token. So
it's a non-token treasure.
It's a non-token treasure. So in a pinch, it can get you that third color if you're splashing for Meria. Or you can just tap it for either of Meria's 2 abilities, which is nice. So yeah, I think that a light splash into 3 colors is definitely doable in Pioneer, although it's just not as free as in Modern.
Yeah, exactly. In Modern, it's not even a problem or consideration. In Pioneer, you actually have to make some testing and some fumbling around to figure it out.
Apart from the colors, what do we think about Meria's overall strength as a card, right? Like, is she just extra Urzas, or is there some things that, you know, make her powerful?
So I don't think she's better than Urza in almost any regard. She's a tad better at drawing cards, but coming without the huge construct makes her a lot weaker on her own. Like, dropping a Meria on board is a lot less powerful than just dropping an Urza, right? Alongside the fact that it also likes to buy Lightning Bolt, not leaving a threat behind is pretty relevant.
Well, that's certainly true, but I'm thinking about what we said last time about Lord Windgrace versus Omnath. Like, obviously Omnath does more, but resolving a 4-mana blue thing is not the easiest thing to do. 3 versus 4 is a big difference, and also not being blue can often be an advantage. So I'm kind of thinking that just existing at a different spot on the curve makes Meria like a whole different class of threat.
Okay. Like, in what regard? I always tend to say it as worse Urza, but you think maybe it's the cheaper cost that allows you to get into play cheaper. I did see the line of like turn 3 Media plus Howling Mine, which was pretty good. I had it happen against me.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the interesting synergies. Although Urza could do that too. I think it's more just like, what I'm envisioning is that Urza is usually the top of the curve. Like, if you're using Urza to ramp to something else, you're probably doing it wrong. However, Meria is like cheap enough, and maybe in Pioneer, especially in Pioneer, that I could see her as like being the bridge that gets me to my next big thing, whether that's Paradox Engine or, as David has sketched out, a Song of Creation list for us. There's a number of things that I think of as like big card draw engines, and you typically have to pair that with a big mana engine. And I don't want my big mana engine to cost 4 or 5.
Okay.
If Meria can do it at 3 mana, that's great. Kinnan can do it at 2 mana. So like now I feel like the curve is starting to shape up in a way that makes sense to me just when I'm like looking at my turn by turn sequence. Like, okay, I'm going to establish my mana first, and then on turn 4, I'm ready to go off. Whereas Urza, I mean, okay, in theory, Urza could do that too, but like 3 versus 4 is a big difference there.
Yeah, but the thing with Urza is also the fact it pays for it, the 1 mana difference on itself when it enters due to the construct as well, right? So it isn't that damning.
But Meria allows you to like untap on turn 4 with 1,000,000 mana. Whereas Urza is like you tap out on turn 4 and try to do one other thing.
Okay, yeah, I get it. The cheaper mana has to be relevant in a lot of scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, we just know this to be true in Magic in general. So I guess it remains to be seen how much of a difference that makes in the style of deck that Meria and Urza lead to. But I suspect it'll be a big difference. I think the other thing that Meria does really well is that she's a big mana engine that also it's like a self-contained card draw engine. And this is one of the problems that you tend to have in a deck like picture any deck using Song Creation or any deck using Mystic Forge or even Paradox Engine or whatever. These are cards that they really need a lot of mana support.
Yeah.
And for that reason, you end up with like a kind of a fragile construction where you have like, maybe 8 payoffs and then a bunch of mana sources. But if they just stop the payoffs, you're screwed. So Meria is like a mana source where it's part of the mana engine that also can just like single-handedly power you through. Like if you are focused on stopping the paradoxical outcome, let's say, or the Song of Creation, like Meria can just pull ahead and kill you.
Okay.
So she's like a backup draw engine. She combines both halves of the deck in a single card. And I think we really haven't seen a card like that. I know Urza has that pay 5 ability, but that's not really the same. Like that's, you do that once a turn. But Meria, you could do it many times. You could do this, 3 times in a turn with Meria.
I do agree with that. The fact Meria allows you to just go as easily. Like the requirement being so lower, I think it's key of what makes her good.
All right, another question for you, Mord, is what are some artifacts that we should be thinking about here?
So we discussed that slightly a few minutes ago, where we go like, mana-producing ones are decent because they become draw engine, but they don't provide you mana. So, ideally, I think one of the best possible cards is stuff like Howling Mine, which actually gives you an upside for being tapped. Because Howling Mine, as all the really old Mono artifact cards, only work when untapped. We're talking about Howling Mine and a few others like Winter Orb and such from the good old days.
Trinisphere, I think. Static Orb.
Static Orb? Yeah, Static Orb does. Trinisphere, I'm not quite sure, but exactly. So if you have stuff like that, it's probably the best possible thing. But then other artifacts that have additional value because of their ETB or their state effect, like Experimental Synthesizer, Portable Hole, Esper Sentinel, those are likely the second best as they become both a mana source, an ETB, anything like a removal, and eventually a card draw engine when needed.
Yeah, a card like Portable Hole is a perfect example where you play Portable Hole, it removes something, and you've gotten your card worth, you've gotten a great deal. And then you just also have this extra artifact just sitting around doing nothing. That's the perfect card for Meria to use, right? The Portable Hole was not doing anything else, so with any mana you get out of it or any times you tap it for Meria, it's just all profit. It's the opposite of a Darksteel Citadel or a Springleaf Drum.
Oh yeah.
Artifacts who need to actually tap themselves to give you their value don't play so great with Meria. Existing somewhere in the middle of those are like cards like Mishra's Bubble.
They're decent to have, they ramp you a mana, but you don't get the extra value from tapping them.
Right. So I actually do think that, there is a build of Meria that's just like a bunch of 0 mana artifacts, of which Mishra's Bubble is the best one. But you'll just have these game objects that don't really do anything. And then when they kill Meria, then you crack the bubbles and try to draw your next copy of Meria, for example.
So, what about a Meria deck list such with Ornithopters, Menmites, Bubble, and how we draw Meria?
I mean, yeah, you now have Urza as well, so...
Exactly, and we just go deep.
I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but I kind of want to try it.
I mean, I think your only plan to win is Karnstructs, right? From Urza Saga and Urza, and hope that's enough. You maybe can just fit in Sword of the Meek, which has some minor synergy with Menmate as well.
One of the things that I want to explore, I haven't sketched this out yet, but I really love the idea of like playing off the top of your deck, right? Experimental Frenzy, one of my favorite cards. Lets you just play cards off the top of your deck until you get stuck.
So want you unstuck yourself with Meria?
Exactly, and Experimental Frenzy has 2 things holding it back. One is you run out of mana. 2 is you get a second land on top, and then you're just done for the turn. Meria solves both issues at once, right? She can clear away the land, she can provide mana, and in both cases, you probably want the rest of the deck to be as free as possible, so a bunch of 0 drops could do that. And if you don't trust Experimental Frenzy, then, substitute a Reality Chip, substitute a Mystic Forge. These are the same kind of things, right? Playing off the top of your deck can be very powerful, can be very explosive, as long as you don't hit clumps. So yeah, if you have something going on where you're trying to control the top of your deck, right? Maybe you have Dragon's Rage Channeler in place, you have Surveil, so now you know on the top of the deck is something that you can play with Meria. Like, there's actually an interesting little mini space there that I like that Meria encourages us to look at that space again.
Yeah. I think you just love Experimental Synthesizer, and it might be insane, but it seems super fun to just play a really low to the ground deck that the only things you cast for more than 1 or 2 mana are Urza and Meria.
Exactly. Yeah, Experimental Synthesizer and Experimental Frenzy, put them both together. Why not?
Oh, you actually managed to pronounce the Synthesizer?
Synthesizer, what? It's not even hard.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I don't know what the big deal is. Okay, so I think that's a good big picture look at what Meria's trying to do. Let's see how Meria actually works.
So immediately after release, it had a number of 5-0s in what was the Pioneer Engine combo, like, right? I think it was the first results it had.
Yeah, exactly. Week 1, and I think you and David covered these decks when we did our kind of week 1 tech roundup. Paradox Engine combo. So what you're looking to do is, by hook and by crook, whatever you got to do to get a Paradox Engine into play. Then you have something like, hopefully Emery, but you can also do it with just enough copies of Springleaf Drum and Elvish Mystic or whatever to keep on tapping these and just play as many spells as you can. Now, the easiest way to combo is with the card Courier's Briefcase and Emery. Courier's Briefcase, you just keep sacrificing it.
So as long as you have 1 mana producing artifact, in general either Drum, Prototype, or Amber alongside a 1-drop, and they're also playing some of the deck lists play Mana Dorks as Elvish Mystic and Llanowar to add to consistency of that and ramp into the Paradox Engine, you will go infinite with just that.
Yeah, so 2 versions of this have 5-0'd. I think the biggest difference is that one of them was playing
6 Mana Dorks.
Oh, I was going to say Relic of Legends, but yeah, I guess there was a difference in the number of mana dorks. Relic of Legends is a 3-mana artifact, taps for any color, so it's a manalith, but it also says tap an untapped legendary creature you control to add another mana of any color. So you can actually tap Kinnan or tap Meria herself with the Relic of Legends.
This also...
Now again, that doesn't synergize.
Exactly, this also doesn't work with Kinnan.
Right, but it gets you to the 5 mana. So again, like here we see very clearly that, okay, the payoff costs 5. We just gotta get there first. So we got a bunch of the deck dedicated to mana. The fact that Meria provides that mana and in a pinch gives you like a little extra card draw, I think does shore up one of the weaknesses of this deck in the past. Like previous versions of this before Meria existed only had like 10 payoff cards in the entire deck. You just stop those 10, the deck does nothing.
That is bound to happen. This is one of the few decks that would make me sad if Karn gets banned, because I'm just looking something to hit monogreen out of Pioneer, or at least weaken it. And as much as I would love to see Karn go, I don't like to see this sort of deck die because of it.
Although I will say, Mord, if you're concerned about Karn getting banned, our friend Servo Token, friend of the show, he writes budget content at playingpioneer.com, great website. Yeah, he's just drafted up a Karn-free version that comes in at just 60 ticks on Magic Online. 65, rather. Yeah, it's a cool combo for sure. But Paradox Engine, we already know about that. Let's get on to the new stuff. Talk to me about Song of Creation.
Oh, Song of Creation. What a beautiful deck. So, we have Song of Creation, formal enchantment from Ikoria, because who doesn't love cards from Ikoria, right? A green, a blue, a red, and a 1. For enchantment that reads, you may play an additional land on each of your turns. Whenever you cast a spell, draw 2 cards, and at the beginning of your end step, discard your hand. So this is one of those play it and win or lose on the spot. Nothing else matters. So what does Meria do here? Actually, she does a lot. The problem with Song of Creation doesn't tend to be running out of cards, because every single 0-mana artifact you play that we have 16 of draws as a card. Thopter, Stone Cold Serpent, Mox Amber, Dormoth Crypt, all are mana neutral or mana positive in the case of Mox Amber and draws 2 cards. Meria, however, makes so all of these artifacts become mana positive, which is huge.
Yeah, so the way that David has built this deck is a lot of 4-ofs for Song of Creation, 4 Kinnan, 4 Meria, 4 Emery, Lurker of the Loch. And then the rest is just cheap cheap artifacts. We got 4 Mox Amber, 4 Tormod's Crypt, 4 Ornithopter, 4 Stonecoil Serpent, 4 Springleaf Drum, 2 Courier's Briefcase, 2 Moonsnare Prototype, and to win the game, 2 copies of Thassa's Oracle. 18 lands, of which Spire of Industry plays an important role holding it all together.
Holding the whole, just pulling the weight of the world.
Exactly. So the issue here is that, like, how many of those cards actually do anything, right? There's the Song, there's the Emery, and that's it.
And
Now, I'm saying that Meria also counts, so that counts as like another draw engine. That's 12 cards that do something. And the rest is light as a feather, pure breezy air.
yeah, the rest is synergistic cards. And that's it. And that's winning an extreme with the rest. You have stuff like Ornithopter, which are the pinnacle of meaningless.
It makes sense. Like, if you want to win with Song, this is what you have to do. You have to play a lot of cheap stuff. Is it possible that David has gone too cheap? Like, I think one of the things that Meria could allow is that it could allow you to use 1 mana cards. David has opted for mostly 0 mana or mana neutral cards, but I'm imagining that if I'm actually going off with Song of Creation and the way this deck is built, I'll have like too much mana by the end. I'll have all these extra Tormod's Crypts and Ornithopters and really nothing to do with that mana. So maybe we can compromise. Maybe we can take out some of the zeros and put in experimental synths, or if you don't like that, you could try the implements, the ones that just sit there until you sacrifice them to draw a card. That works nicely with Song, because Song, sometimes you have to like play it, discard your hand, and pass the turn. Implement gives you another way to kind of like restart the chain.
Yeah. This is very un-David-like in the fact it plays a lot of playsets. Am I the only one seeing that?
It is. Yeah, this is not his...
This is super responsible deck building. Even the sideboard.
I think this is a protest deck on his part. He like doesn't like this style of card.
Yeah. This is sort of a rivalry out of him. Like, I'm just loving the fact this is super responsible deck building. Even the 2000 Oracle, so you don't like die to not being able to play them, or it's like the last card in the deck. Like, this is super responsible deck building.
So the sideboard is interesting. It's 4 Mystical Dispute, 4 Aether Gust. Don't put too much stock on those. Those are kind of just placeholders. 4 Antiquity's War. 3 and a blue enchantment. First 2 chapters, when they trigger, you look at your top 5 cards, pick an artifact that goes to your hand. So you're kind of drawing 2. And then on chapter 3, all your artifacts become 5/5s, and you can just attack for a bunch. Great card to get in the spirit of the Brothers' War. So we're getting psyched up for that. And I think the theory here is that if the opponent is like seeing you're on a Song of Creation combo, you can almost juke them, right? They're not going to be prepared with Fatal Pushes or whatever to stop this sudden swarm of 5/5 artifacts. So yeah, Turbo Antiquity's War sideboard plan. David has even gone so far as to use his final sideboard slots for 2 Courier's Briefcase and another Moonsnare prototype to just help with that Antiquity's War plan.
I do love the Antiquity's War as a sideboard shook. I think the last time I have played that card was when I was trying to make Metal War Colossus work, and it just wins you so many games because people are not ready for it. Even if people have their Paddle Boost or such for your Meria, in this sort of deck, it's not like Yawgmoth, in that regard that when you're playing against Yawgmoth, you have to make sure every single mana dork or creature alive dies before Yawgmoth resolves. So you're playing a really get rid of everything on the board game plan. Against the Song of Creation deck list, you just ignore the drums, the Thopters, the Ambers, the Tormod Script, or the Serpents because they give nothing of value. Once you add the Antiquity's War to the matchup, that people have to actually think about it differently. Like, what can I interact with?
All right, I'm intrigued. Let's give it a shot. One other deck in Pioneer that I'm keen to try. This deck was not very good when I tried it the first time out, but I think Meria could be the missing piece. So if you think back more to one of the first episodes when you and Zach were coming on, it was Crimson Vow season, and we really liked the card Hullbreaker Horror.
We did. Beautiful creature.
It's a 7-drop, 7/8 flash Kraken Horror. Can't be countered, so it's kind of designed to be like a control, Mirror Breaker control finisher. But what I like was that it actually had combo potential, because what Hullbreaker Horror says is whenever you cast any spell, you can either bounce a spell that's on the stack or bounce a non-land permanent. If you have like a Mox Amber or some other zero-cost permanent, that means that you could potentially, with Hullbreaker Horror in play, and that's a big if, right? But let's just imagine it's there. Just picture it's there. A beautiful Hullbreaker Horror. I cast any spell and I point the bounce trigger at my Ornithopter. Pick up the Ornithopter, cast it, and I get to bounce something else. Well, I bounce another zero drop. And you can just keep looping these two forever with the Hullbreaker Horror's ability. Why, you ask? Well, that's a different question, right? Like, what's the point of all this? But my theory was that there's got to be some way to win. One of the ways that I thought of was, okay, well, Oath of Nissa is a 1-mana permanent that basically draws the deck.
And enables Mox Amber.
So, like, at some point, I can just use Oath of Nissa and Mox Amber, loop those two with Hullbreaker, and draw a whole new hand.
Oh, it doesn't. That's sad.
Yeah, it doesn't unless you have a legend in play.
Yeah.
But, I'm going to play Kinnan, I'm going to play...
We're going to have a lot of other legendaries.
Yeah, and, the usual suspects are there. Similar, like, okay, I have, like, a big draw concept. I need a lot of big mana, so I need my Elvish Mystics, I need my Springleaf Drums, etc., etc. I mean, all these decks kind of have the same structural desires and structural problems. So Meria, I hope, can solve this. So one of the issues that I had when I tested this was, they fight back, right? The opponents, pesky opponents, try to interfere with you all the time, and you end up getting stuck at like 5 mana, 6 mana. I was like not quite there, right? And I think that if I just had something that gave a huge burst of mana, the deck would have been beautiful. Urza would be perfect. That's not legal in Pioneer, so Meria, I think, is going to be perfect. Meria on turn 3 or turn 2 even gets me to 7 mana potentially on the next turn, right? And Hullbreaker Horror can't be countered, so it's not even a question of like resolving it. It's just like, okay, I gotta get to 7, and Meria is wonderful at that job. So I'm actually wondering if I can revive this archetype here.
I just love Hullbreaker Horror. I have been trying to slowly stifle it into my mid-range and control builds every single time in the sideboard. And then I draw it in the early game and I'm like, why am I playing this instead of Emrakul?
Well, you weren't playing Meria, so you couldn't get to 7, but now you can.
And now you can. The card is super sweet, so I just hope we can find it at home. Either Meria or Hullbreaker.
There's new toys. I mean, there's a bunch of new toys since Crimson Vow season. I think Experimental Synthesizer is actually a great pickup for this, because that actually triggers upon leaving the battlefield. So if you just pick it up with a Hullbreaker Horror, you actually get another draw there. Moonstar Prototype was not printed at the time. Courier's Briefcase was not printed at the time. So there's actually like a ton of new options for this shell, and I just need to like math it all out and figure out the exact build. But this is what I'm going to test first.
Okay. Seems like a really good starting point. I think I'm going to go for the more mid-range builds that we're about to discuss.
Okay, tell me about those.
So, a lot of people went ahead and just added Meria to... mostly on modern shells, of course, because it's super hard to play Meria mid-range in Pioneer. You have to try and win, right? So the next 2 decks in Pioneer, that I don't want to skip, are actually the Paradoxical Outcome decks, which sadly felt a tad weaker than just the alternative of looping with Emry and the Engine, right?
Right, I mean, these decks did not 5-0. These are just decks that people are thinking about. But, I mean, there's a bunch of cards that cost 4 or 5 and draw a bunch of cards.
Paradox Engine is just too powerful of a card, right? It's insanely good.
Paradox Engine removes the need to draw cards because it just lets you win immediately. But if you want to make it more complicated, you could draw the cards first. Paradoxical Outcome does that.
If a card gets banned in Commander due to how it's to combo with, it's likely too powerful to combo with.
Yeah, so we can think of like other big draw cards, like Paradoxical Outcome. I think the new Blue Defiler is a big draw card, Defiler of Dreams. I mentioned Mystic Forge already, Experimental Frenzy. A Reality Chip also makes sense, so you could tap that with Meria. So these cards all make sense. Song of Creation, of course. But I think that the ones we'll start with in Pioneer, at least, are the Song deck and Paradox Engine deck, and for me, the Hullbreaker Horror deck. But more, you're talking about shifting formats entirely.
Yeah. Not only formats, but also archetypes. So we're still playing Meria, we're still playing an artifact-based deck. However, we're going towards something completely different. We're going out from the super combo, super all-in sort of plans into a Hardened Scales game plan where Meria works super well with the whole lot of 1 or 2 mana artifacts we play. So we have the Ballista, the Walkers, the Arcbound Walker, the Arcbound Worker, Savas, Ravager, Welding Shards, Osolith, and such, that allow us to play Meria as a super easy way to start drawing 2 cards or even 3 cards per turn with our artifacts such as Osolith or Welding Shard that are just laying there doing nothing.
Exactly. It's kind of non-intuitive because most of the cards you named are creatures, and creatures I think of as, well, if I'm not attacking with them, what good are they doing me? But Hardened Scales doesn't always need the combat step. Right? Like sometimes the game is actually won in a single stroke, with Arcbound Ravager dumping counters onto either Inkmoth Nexus or Ballista. And if you're just setting up for that, like there's not really like a huge benefit to attacking with Zabaz and Arcbound Worker or whatever in the meantime. So yeah, why not use them to support Meria and like dig towards your pieces?
Yeah, so that's the thing with Hardened Scales, exactly. You only need to attack with 1 or 2 creatures. The rest are just laying there setting up. They're not actually attacking most of the time because they're tiny creatures or they have another plan, so you can use them with Meria pretty efficiently. And other than that is the Thopter Sword more mid-rangey combo. So it's a combo, it has the combo, but it has a fair plan alongside Esper Sentinel, Stoneforge Mystic that is super annoying for a lot of decks to deal with.
So this is an old deck, but new to the 5-0s. The Hardened Scales deck, I think you and David covered the first 5-0. That deck is 5-0 twice with Meria. Thopter Sword, there's actually been 2 5-0s with this as well. They're more recent. So we explained already how Meria goes quote-unquote infinite. It's real infinite, it's just not infinite draw. So it totally makes sense, and now you have a bunch of Urzas in the deck.
Yeah, so now you have a bunch of Urzas which allow you to just go super deep in how you combo. As we said before, with Sword of the Meek, with Media you don't get to win the game, but at least you get to make an infinite artifact and get infinite life. So it has to be worth something.
So the reason I think a deck like this is strong is that obviously you have a much larger card pool in Modern, so that means the artifacts that you're choosing actually do things. They don't just they're not just Springleaf drums. They actually have effects, right? Esper Sentinel, Portable Hole, we have play sets of those. Thopter and Sword are obviously part of like a big game-winning combo. You have a bunch of cards here that support an Urza Sagas package, so that's Shadow Spear, there is 1 Springleaf Drum, Soul Guide Lantern, a couple Chromatic Stars, and Ether Spellbomb. All these cards cost 1, but they have meaningful game text.
And that you can tap them super easily, right? Portable Hole, Ether Spellbomb, Piercing Needle, Esper Sentinel are cards you can just tap at your own desire without any downside.
Yeah, most of them don't need to tap to generate some value, so you're going to get double use out of them, which is nice. No experimental synths here. That makes me a little sad, but so be it.
We do what we can with the colors we have.
I mean, you have all the colors.
Yeah, but I mean, synth requires a much lower curve. You're never gonna see me play Kaldra Complete, Urza, and Synthesizer in the same deck, and if you do, kill me. Shoot me in the head before I keep making mistakes.
But it combos with Goblin Engineer. You sack it for value.
And then you keep finding Kaldra, and then Urza. Can you cast them? No. But you tried. You did your best.
All right, so you find yourself drawn to these 2 strategies more.
I'm always lured into more mid-range strategies. Like, yesterday I went to play Popper at an LGS like 3 blocks away from me, right? Then to go because my friends play there. And I was playing Goblins combo. I won't get into the details of it. But I actually went like 3rd in the tournament. And I never comboed almost. Like, even with the combo decks, if I can find myself in a controlling situation, I try to just lure myself into the mid-range aspect of the deck. I just don't work as a combo player.
All right, last deck we'll mention before we sign off here. Right away you said Howling Mine, best artifact to pair with Meria. And I had to smile when you said that because, it's the sweetest thing to pair with Meria, but Howling Mine is not a playable card.
So it's the worst card, but the sweetest card.
Right, and I mean, if you had to make a definitive statement, why is Howling Mine not playable?
The fact on its own, it's broken if you have... Right now you have 12 ways to tap it, which might get you a meaningful amount to consider it almost decent. Because you have Prototype, Urza, Meria, and 2 of those you can do on turn 2 or 3, right? Turn 3 Meria plus Howling Mine is pretty easy with any 1 or 2 0 mana artifact that you have before. and monster prototype into Howling Mine is just a decent curve. However, the card on its own is card disadvantage of the highest degree, right? You play it, your opponent draws a card, and they remove it one of the 100 million ways to remove it in Magic.
Teferi, bounce your Howling Mine.
Teferi, bounce your Howling Mine.
Do you want to recast it?
Draw my card, ending it. Draw my card, binding it. Nowadays, Colagans command it, Abrupt Decay, Witherbloom command it. Everything kills a Howling Mine. And if your opponent is gonna get the draw first, it's gonna be devastating.
So I cannot in good conscience recommend this, but if you were going to put Howling Mine into a deck with Meria, I assume Moonstar Prototype and Urza would also be there. How would the rest of the deck look?
So the rest of the deck would, I think, because of what we said, be a Thopter Foundry combo. Because we have all the cards, right? We have also the 4 Goblin Engineers, which are Artificers, which, as I discussed before, allows you to play cards like Cavern of Souls. Because if your deck plays 16 creatures and 12 of them are Artificers, that's pretty great. That's gonna make it bound that you're gonna be able to not only fix your mana for Engineer, Meria, and Urza, but make them uncontrollable is pretty huge. That's one of the finest ways to interact with Urza mostly.
Okay, yeah, I like that actually. Now it makes sense. So when I'm looking at the deck list, I mean, we have a list here.
Yeah, so this was being played by Magicate, and then I think he also uploaded a YouTube video. I've played against this once or twice at least, because it got a bit popularized. And it's like a pretty stock 22 lands, 4 Sentinel, 4 Portable Howl, 4 Monster Prototype, 4 Howling Mine, 2 Swords, and a full playset of Engineer, Foundry, Meria, and Urza. Alongside, of course, 4 Urza Saga, because why would you not play 4 Urza Saga in this sort of decklist?
So it almost looks like the 5-0 lists that we just discussed with Thopter Sword, but they just took out 4 of the useful cards and put in 4 Howling Mines instead.
Yes.
To make it sweeter, which is fine. I mean, that's a fine way to approach brewing in Modern.
I did lose a game to double Howling Mine though.
Really?
I had to spend my removal on an Urzas and such, and they just managed to stake in 2 prototypes and 2 Howling Mines. Well, I dealt with the good stuff.
We gotta live a little bit. We gotta at least play Howling Mine once or twice. If this is what it takes. Yeah, if Meria week and Moonstar Prototype week is what it takes, like, let's just try it. I'm sure that all the disasters will happen, but when you lead on Prototype into Howling Mine, that's gonna be so sweet.
Yeah. It's sweet. I just can't recommend this in good mind, but I think if you want to have fun, test it. If you want to win, stick to playing better artifact combo decks. Like Breach. Breach is winning everything. Congrats, she.
So do you think grinding Breach could actually make use of Meria, or is that a little bit too far afield?
I don't think so. I think it's too far off the edge. The mana base right now is also splashing white for the Teferi, and it's already struggling because you're a 20 card deck with 4 Urza Saga. Sorry, a 20 land deck with 4 Urza Saga. Splashing the 3rd color is already pretty punishing in a lot of spots. Let's not even talk about the 4th one.
So I think that's probably a fair assessment. It needs to be said. It at least needs to be said that there is a powerful interaction between Grinding Station and both Meria and Urza, right? The fact that Grinding Station untaps itself anytime an artifact comes into play means it's like a stunning mana source. You could always do that with Urza if you wanted to, but we rarely play those together. Meria is a little cheaper, a little more plausible, and you can actually tap Grinding Station for either of Meria's 2 abilities, so it can make a huge amount of mana, or it can just
draw you half a card
over and over again, because, you know, if the card you drew was an artifact, that untaps your Grinding Station, you're good to go again. 2 Grinding Stations in play, you could just, you know, go through the entire deck. I'm not going to rule it out. Maybe it's not going to be like, okay, stock Grinding Station, and I just shove Meria's in there. Maybe there's like a slightly different configuration. We'll make it worse to make it sweeter, to make it a Meria deck. But I think that's okay.
Oh, I think if you change the configuration, they might be a Meria deck. I just wouldn't try to fit in to the current Grinding Station, which is already too tightly packed.
Right. No, we have to remove something that makes it good.
Okay, good.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not totally out of the question, like, not just that interaction too, but think about Underworld Breach.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's a really powerful draw engine if you're not stuck on mana, and Meria provides you so much mana. So she just makes Breach better.
Yeah, you also have to fill your graveyard, so it's a tad harder.
It is going to be, you know, it's going to be different, but I think Meria does good things with these decks, so food for thought.
All right. Yeah, that will be super interesting to see. Also, before we leave, updates in people complaining in the Magic Real. Everybody's complaining because, as we just said, the release is the 15th of the Brothers War, and the regional tournament of Pioneer is, I think, the 16th or the 17th. So no testing for any of you online players.
Wait, the regional championship is 2 days after the paper release?
No, the online release, 6 days after the paper release. So good luck to anybody that needs testing.
Wow. Well, that's going to be like in the days of old, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has wanted a pre-release Pro Tour. Let's make it happen.
Exactly. the people are asking why the hell wasn't it gonna be just like drafting they're gonna do this, but that's just fun.
All right, so I think we covered a good range of things we might want to explore with Meria. Is there anything else? I mean, any stones left unturned or any stray thoughts?
Not much else, I think. I think Meria is a pretty complete card. I think it's pretty interesting due to the fact mostly of it being like a tiny Urza, but also being cheaper while doing so. And the fact you can draw cards so easily if your artifact is a lower curve. Like, as long as whatever you're exiling costs 1 or 2, its drawability becomes so much cheaper than Urza's one. Which makes it a little interesting in a different kind of deck, like the one we discussed with a lot of Ornithopters and such.
Yeah, definitely a forward compatible card. I mean, there's going to be more artifacts printed. There's going to be more Gruul cards printed that work with artifacts. So it's possible that we'll find that, okay, Meria's solid, but the decks that she supports are like not quite there yet. And that's okay, right? That's still a useful finding for the future. Nevertheless, I'm going to pin my hopes on this Hullbreaker horror deck. I'll probably also brew something with Experimental Frenzy and Experimental Synth. Those are too good to pass up, right? And we'll see how it goes.
Too good to say no to.
Exactly. All right, I think that's a good place to leave it here.
Seems perfect. Dan, thanks so much for having me. The kittens bid you all farewell. They're sleeping right behind me. I had to go get one that was trying to escape into my room.
One small squeaky step for kitten kind.
I love that they aren't walking, they're stumbling.
Oh my gosh.
So thanks so much, everybody. Have a nice night, and please take your votings, as tonight it's the final hours for the monthly project for next month. And if you vote for Green March, know you earn my undeserved and always eternal hate. Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Deck lists for this episode can be viewed at our homepage, faithlessbrewing.com. And tune in next time for the winner of our monthly project, plus testing results with Soul of Windgrace. Support for this podcast is provided by brewers like you. Join the Faithless family and help support the show at patreon.com/faithlessbrewing for Discord access, bonus content, and more. That's all for today. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.